Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm very pleased to have with me Mark Lindsey, ECG. Mark, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, glad to be able to do it. Thanks for having me on, Doug.
We're going to be talking about a very interesting thing that you've been demoing, you've been showing people, a really great opportunity for the MSP and channel partner community. But before we dive into that, what is ECG?
So ECG is fundamentally a telecom engineering and application development firm. So we help make the products that help communication really happen, including AI-based applications and classic telecom communication applications.
All right, so let's just get to it. You have been talking about something called Wingman. What is that?
Yeah, so Wingman is a product we're bringing to market. Instead of like our classic sales motion is we work with a vendor like Verizon and we build something like OneTalk. So we help them bring that product to market. So that's been classic. We would bring a service through a service provider. Wingman is something we can offer directly through the channel to enterprises. And the real observation is businesses are drowning in information. A lot of it happens in phone calls that they are already having within their just regular voice communication platform, their contact centers, their just business phone systems, their Teams calls. They're drowning in data, and that information is never getting where it really needs to go. Wingman turned every call into structured intelligence in the applications that people are already using. So it's not proof of concept; it's production ready. We won an award already from Frost & Sullivan.
Wow!
And so we're ready to deploy this now.
And what do you get with Wingman? There's some things you're talking about: real-time post-call transcription and some diarization and so on.
Yeah, so what that's all about, that's the technology about getting access to the call content. So we connect in, we're telecom engineers, like I said, so we connect into the telecom networks, integrate it with different, the service providers who operate the infrastructure, or to the enterprise that's operating the telephones or the endpoints. So we connect in there, we get access to their call content, so their actual call audio. And then we process that, we do it in real time, so we can process and like detect things that are being said in real time. We have a lot of privacy controls kind of built into that to get approvals from all parties as necessary. We take that's called just the transcription or ASR, automatic speech recognition. So that's table stakes for a lot of folks. We turn that into a diarized call so you can see who said what. So it's a bubble view. It looks like a text messaging conversation. We provide that. And so that's also pretty cool. It lets you go back and read what's happening that your employees are talking about, maybe your contact center staff or your sales team, what they're talking about. And then we go beyond that. We summarize it. So we give you just a brief summary. We can provide that, where you need it, places like Teams or Slack. We can load that summary. We can text it out to you automatically. But then beyond that, we go into like the action items. So what things did I need to do based on that call? What things did I need from you based on that call? And so it goes and gets all that information, organize it, send it out in bullet points. So if you and I were having a call, Doug, we could talk about it, and I'd say, hey, would you mind if I send you a text about what I need for our next podcast? And maybe you say, sure, and then you just get a text message from Wingman automatically that does that for you. So it's built on some open source technology and then our own technology to actually process those calls, and it's scalable. So a lot of people are doing transcription projects internally, and they can see, well, on a MacBook Pro, you can do a couple of calls. But scaling this up to the volumes that you'd have in a real service provider where you need tens or hundreds or maybe thousands of concurrent calls, that's part of the magic of the scalability of a platform like this.
So what's your differentiator? I mean, don't we have a lot of transcription products and stuff out there?
Yeah, we do. You're right. So, and I think it's a table stakes item. Just to have transcription. If you're a voice service provider, you're selling a voice service, a SIP trunking or a UC product, and you don't have transcription, then that's going to change. You're going to need to be able to do that because the expectation is there that people are going to need to be able to read their calls. So they're going to want to be able to look through the notes. I think a real differentiator is what Frost & Sullivan really loved is the different deployment models. So you can come to us as a reseller or an enterprise and get it on a per user basis, just a SaaS model, super simple. We set up to integrate the technology to send the call audio, and then you get a copy of your calls. But then if you are, let's say that you're a voice service provider and you want to operate it on your own infrastructure, and you've got your own cloud provider you want to use, you've got a data center, well, you can put Wingman in your data center as software that you run. You run the GPUs and you get access to do all that AI processing. You can run LLMs either locally within your servers that you're running, or you can outsource that. You can talk to Amazon Bedrock, or you can use the different LLMs from the big frontier providers if you need that. Or let's say that you've got a client that's a hospital, and they don't even want their voice service provider operating their transcriptions because they're sensitive. That's, that crosses the line. It's not a clear HIPAA case of, a carve out for security in the U.S. HIPAA law when you start talking about transcriptions. So they could put Wingman in their own data center where they have access to the data. They control it. It's basically functionally air gapped from the internet. It's not talking to AI externally. It's only using local processing to analyze and do summarization and things on servers within their infrastructure. So that ability to do it in your location, in your data center, or maybe in a different country. If you're a European operator, you're not necessarily excited about hosting your call transcription on American servers every time.
Right.
A lot of countries feel like that. And so the sovereign AI question is, how do we ensure that we get the value from AI, these AI features, we don't get left behind? But we really want to have sovereignty over the laws that govern, how that's done. And so Wingman gives you a number of deployment models, starting from super simple, just SaaS-based model, to running it on your own server in your own country.
When we were prepping for this conference today, you mentioned something about a pharmacy call center case.
Yeah, so you think about a case where you've got a pharmacy, they've got an inbound contact center, and the folks that are on the phone for that pharmacy are handling lots of calls. There's protected health information. There's details there. The people who are answering the calls are not providing medical advice necessarily, but they are involved in the process of communicating prescriptions, the dosages, verifying the patient identity, dealing with insurance questions, that kind of thing. Under HIPAA, every one of those call recordings and transcriptions needs to be protected. And from the moment it touches the cloud server, you don't control. So when you're signing a business associates agreement with someone else, you're basically expecting them to implement all of the security mechanisms, and they're accepting responsibility for it. And you're really hoping their cloud security holds. Right now, all of the AI transcription technology, summarization technology is really running in the cloud. And so in order to do this in a fully compliant, safe way, you really do need to be sure that you've got the BAAs in place and that the providers are actually functionally capable of implementing it. It doesn't do you any good just to sign a BAA. That does not make you compliant with HIPAA. What you really need is to be able to implement all the security standards. So, for example, if their technical staff logs into a server to troubleshoot it and they can see visibility into those call logs, you need to know exactly which employee it was that logged in and accessed that, and which of the different covered entities, the medical providers, they were touching. So there's a lot to that. With Wingman, the self-hosted model, you can do all that. You can keep track of what's being said by your pharmacy techs and other call center staff, but you can do it on servers that are operated internally inside your organization. That way you're not having to delegate a responsibility. You don't have the risk of data not getting managed well. You can run it on an infrastructure that you own, that you operate, and that you take the responsibilities for, just like all the other data processing systems you're already doing. So beyond HIPAA, pharmacies are also subject to DEA, record keeping, some state board regulation, and a self-hosted deployment means your audit trails stay inside your governance framework and inside your security enclave.
And you've been talking a little bit about compliance all year long. I have to say that's sort of been the magic word. Everyone's interested in compliance, compliance on many levels. So it sounds like you are really tackling that topic of HIPAA and GDPR.
Yeah, we believe in kind of a compliance first, privacy first model. We really think that's going to be a winning model. It's not a matter of let's move fast and break things. When you're talking about people's privacy and their safety, we really need to be sure that when we're processing the content and phone calls, that we're checking every box. For example, Wingman by default, like automatically out of the box, if you deploy it, it's going to want to hear us confirm that you have approved me recording this call. It's going to want to hear that on the call. If it doesn't hear that, we don't actually have a conversation about the right to keep this call, it's not going to retain that call. It'll just disappear. Different environments might mean you need to tweak those settings. So maybe you have a call recording, a warning in advance about the call being recorded. So you can tune it, but we really want to make sure that that's really well done. Wingman encrypts the data as it's stored. You can also add a second layer of encryption in your underlying storage environment to ensure that you're meeting the specifications. For example, under the HIPAA law, there's a kind of a moving target of what encryption standard you need to use for your data storage. when you're encrypting it at rest. There's also encryption in flight, where the data is moving from one system to the other. So those are all some of the technical measures that are necessary to comply with things like HIPAA, and they also overlap with what you need to do for GDPR. Sometimes they overlap with what's necessary for other standards as well. So there's compliance in that sense of meeting the technical standards for things like for HIPAA. But then there's also another angle of compliance, which is what's actually being said. Are they giving the appropriate disclosures? Are the employees actually saying the right things? For example, if you're in debt collection, there are certain things that you need to say, the debt collectors need to say, as part of collecting on legitimate debts.
Right.
And so you need to be able to check to be sure those things are actually being said. And the classic call recording compliance story is that we're going to make all these recordings and then we're going to sample a few of them, but we're not really looking across all of them.
Right.
Nor are we making it really convenient to do so. So there's different angles of compliance. There's compliance like on a technical measure, being able to comply with those rules. And then there's also compliance about what people are actually saying. Are they complying with our procedures?
Now, Mark, you've already mentioned some milestones. Frost and Sullivan Best Practices New Product Innovation Award, your patent pending, some other things and some other presentations. Tell me a little bit more now about, as we close up our podcast today, about your message to the channel partner community and the MSP community.
Yeah, I think the real interest has got to come from those end users. So the organization that's running the pharmacy, the hospital, the educational institution, the business that's doing sales or real estate, what we need is to make them aware of this need. And then based on that need that's coming in, that they need to have an expectation that the information that's happening on phone calls should be something they have access to long-term. It's not ephemeral. It's not something that just disappears when they hang up the call. It needs to be, they need to start thinking in terms of, I had a good conversation with Doug. What do we talk about? So it's got to start there. So we've got to start creating an understanding and an expectation there. And then the partners who are there talking to those enterprises, those small and medium businesses, they need to understand that this is capable and where to integrate it. Where is this available from my service provider options that are available? So I really think the demand has got to bubble up from those end users. They need to understand what's available and what's possible. And then we need to start bringing this through to service providers. We want to make Wingman available at each of those levels where it's convenient to deploy for the privacy model they need, for the scalability that they need. And so ECG is committed to making Wingman a convenient deployment and having a profitable model for all of the steps along the path for those who are bringing it to market and offering it to their end users.
Mark, I really want to thank you for joining me today, giving us a very brief overview of Wingman, ECG Wingman. Mark, what I want to do, we're going to do this soon, is let's do a podcast where we do literally a live recording of actually showing how this works on the screen.
Great.
At these events, it's a little awkward, but I think we need to actually, seeing the product, I have to say to everybody, seeing the product in action is very interesting. That itself is a big differentiator. I recommend it. Where can people do that? How can they reach out to ECG, learn more?
We'll go to ecg.co and go to contact us. It'll come to me and my team, and we'll be glad to show it to you. But I will say, I'm going to steal one of our friend John Arnold's lines and say, watch this space, because it's going to be, the demo is going to be here on Doug's channel.
All right. Well, we are going to look forward to that. Mark, thank you for taking time out with me today.
Great. Thanks, Doug.